Mary and I got back about a little over 2.5 weeks ago, and so we just want to share with you some of the slides and give you some updates on what is happening there. Next. Just wanted to show a few animal pictures. This little monkey, there was no zoom lens. I mean, he just came right up to us, and so thought I'd get a picture of him. Next. This was a zoom lens, by the way. Next. That's a little baby giraffe, probably about a week old, and we got a picture of him. And then we got the baby elephant and mother. Next. And then the final one I wanted to show you. I took it from a distance, but we blew it up. Next. And that's got a hippo with his mouth open. If you look at those incisors, it's big. Next slide. All right, just want to remind you where we're working. We're working in these 5 countries, and when I was here last time, we had just added Lesotho, and so it's a big area and a big population of people that we are trying to reach for the Lord, and very receptive area at this time. Just want to say, because people ask the question, this part of Africa is, the Muslim radicals are not in this area. And so at this time, we are able to share Jesus freely in high density and in rural areas. Next. If you live there, you die 25 years sooner and 27 more times to have HIV. But I guess above everything has already been mentioned by Benny from the during the Lord's Supper devotional. The income we make compared to them is their income is minuscule to what we make. So and not because they're not intelligent and smart, but because of situations and multiple, and some brought on by governments and some not. Next. We had the Jackson Christian High School come last year, and then they came again this year for their spring break, and you can see the guy right in the middle, you can see his head right there. His congregation had made dresses for all the girls, and so they were all holding their dresses up. It was wonderful. Great group of teenagers. A wonderful event, and I appreciate the president and his wife bringing these young people. Next. That is the president's wife, Melody, and next. That's the president, Mark, and just a tremendous guy. And the first Sunday, there was 8 people to be immersed into Christ. We were thankful. Next. Some of the young people that came, mingling with the Zimbabwe children. Next. They just fit right in. I tell you, they really. And do you know that when they are training and getting prepared for their spring break trip, everybody knows they are not allowed to use their smartphones any time that they are there. He has a phone and he communicates, and so they just have full and undivided attention with the people that they are at or living with. Next. That's them performing in front of one of the schools that we have helped. In fact, we drilled a well there just recently, and they're growing vegetables, those children. Next. This picture I showed you last time because Faith was about to have a baby, and that was some of the young people that came from Jackson Christian. Next slide, and there's the baby boy. I just wanted you to see him, but I want you to tell you something about this family. This family is the point. The husband and wife are the point people to getting the clinic and the high school done. They are an amazing couple, and we are blessed with several young adult couples that are just working so hard for the Lord. And so we are thankful. That is Bruce and Faith Vimba, and their oldest son is Kaya, and the youngest son is Caden. Next slide. So that's the clinic, and we are thankful, so thankful. When we were there, the government sent the national television team from the capital down there, and they did a massive expose on our clinic, and we are thankful for that. Next. So I've got to tell you this. So we arrived there. This is, we're out at the clinic, and there's all these boys sitting there. Now you can see what kind of ages they are. And they were just kind of talking and laughing and everything. And I said to the nurse, well, what are they here for? Because some of them come for inoculation. she says they're going to be circumcised. Well, I want you to know about an hour later, none of them could have taken on the Philistines, if you know what I mean. So next slide. They, by the way, 5 babies were born in the week that we were there also, just to let you know the variety of things that's been done at that clinic is amazing. Saved a boy from being bitten by a poisonous snake several months ago, and it's just the impact we're making on the community is tremendous. Next. So this is people waiting, and I said 250, 300 a week being seen. Next. This is one of our nurses. Next. This is interesting. A mother was trying to give birth at home in a mud hut and was having difficulties, so they rushed her to the clinic. And that day we had got there, and she had delivered the baby. They had everything was fine. I mean, they were able to help her. And so Sherry had just brought in some crocheted hats, and we gave one to the baby. And the mother put it on the baby, and that was wonderful. This is one of the nurse assistants there. Next. It's the nurse there on the right. One of the nurses, her name is Miracle. I thought, how ironic, working at the clinic and her name is Miracle. So next. This is 300 children met us at the clinic that day because we decided to do a feeding. They feed there sometimes also, but every one of those children had been inoculated at the clinic, and so that was kind of special. And so the young people from Jackson Christian School met them at the gate, and then had an afternoon with them. Next. This is special. I know that you don't know them, but many years ago, Sherry and I went to the island of Antigua, and we met 2 young guys. We met several young guys. 2 of them are standing before you, and it was almost 30 years ago. They were in their late teens, and one was 20. The short guy on the left was a Rastafarian, and we got to know them and shared with them the gospel. And they are now elders in the church there on the island of Antigua, and 2 lovely wives. And so I said, why don't you come to Africa? And so they spent 2 weeks with us in Africa, and it was quite special. Next. That's a global. I got global outreach there because that's Haley that lives, and of course Harold knows Haley sitting in those chairs. But the guy on the left is Dion. Now, Dion looks about as old as Haley, but Dion's actually in his 50s. But you wouldn't think so, would you? And he's super fit. I mean, he's been a farmer all his life, and the type of farming he does, I mean, it's hands in the soil, literally, But I just thought there's this guy from Antigua and Haley. If you saw them, you'd think they're from the same place. And they are completely different cultures, one in the Caribbean, halfway around the world, and yet they're all sharing the gospel, And so that's great. And he's an elder, and Haley's an evangelist. Next. This was us out at Chidobe Village, just out there in the wild, and we worshiped in that hut, about 70 of us. Next. And one of the traditions is when the service ends, you file out and you shake hands with everybody until the circle is finished. Next slide. I want you to see, that's Brother Jubani. He's the preacher out there. This is a wildlife area. And Brother Jubani told me, he says, Dorian, I was walking home the other night and 2 hyenas were following me. I said, why are you walking at night? Because he says, I just got a stone and I told him to get away from me. Wow. Talk about a different percent. Next slide. They wouldn't let us leave without giving us some millies to eat or some corn. And so we enjoyed their corn. Next. And that's Sherry's Sunday school class. That she probably taught that about 4 weeks ago. Next. This is the foods we give the children that we feed every week. And we're feeding in 3 countries now. Next. That's Daisy and Rosa. Those are the girls from the Caribbean. And they got up early the morning with Noma to cook food. And they said, no, we can do it. So they got up at 5:30 and they cooked and they served. Next. And we've been doing it, of course, 8 years. But that's their stove right there. And they cook in those pots. Those pots take a beating, man. I mean, you cook. Next. And there's the food. I think the plums look really delicious, don't you think? They look really good. That is a protein mix that they have in those pots, and were able to get apples and plums that day. Next. This young guy was so undernourished years ago, and he's turned into such a fine boy, so healthy because of our feeding program. And his father, during that time, has obeyed the gospel. Not only obeyed the gospel, but his father now preaches sometimes on Sundays as well. And it's just tremendous to see that sort of thing. And it just came from our feeding program. Next. And there's Haley with another young guy that was just so undernourished at the time. Next. And so we had some ladies give money towards pots. And so Hanoma, who cooks for 200 children every week, was so happy to get those new pots. Next. This is some of the children that we feed with. It's another feeding. And Faith and Sherry there. Next. And there's some of their food. Next. And this little boy, I thought it was so cute. We were feeding out in the rural areas, and you got a sandwich and a banana, buddy, and he wanted both. And plus all the clothes came from Africa off the container. The guy's he's got a good life right now. Next. And then we do a lot of rural feeding where we haven't drilled wells. Next. And there's the ladies heading on out. Next. And I think I told you about them. I might have shared this, but I wasn't sure. But this is a couple that helps with our feeding and orphans in northern South Africa. And she is very funny. Her name is Uno. And she came to me and she said, Dorian, you know, my husband's name is, and I said, Zia Condi. She said, yes, it's Zia Condi in VENDA, but in English, do you know what it means? And I said, no. She says it means difficult. Next. And those are the orphans that they feed. Next. Next. And so we have moved to Lesotho. And when I was here last time, I had just gone there. And I just want you to see what we've accomplished since then. Next. There is a wonderful Christian lady that has got all these orphan children up in the village there. It's way up in the mountains. And she is feeding them, and then she has Sunday school with them, and they've been able to plant a church there now. Well, we sent her money for the Christmas feeding, and she went to one of the grocery stores and said, please give us a discount on our food. And they did, and she was so happy because she says, Dorian, I was able to buy all the food, and then I was able to get each orphan a Christmas present. So she was so happy with that money as well. And first presents for these kids, you know. She said I had to explain to them what Christmas present was. You know, they know Christmas, but to get a present. Next slide. That's the lady on the right. Her name is Nono, and the young man on the left is a preacher in training, and just a fine young man. There's two of them that are going to be working up there. Next. This lady on the right is one of the sisters there. She's very influential. She teaches at the medical school. She has a PhD and a doctorate. She's a very intelligent lady, and she has Bible studies with her medical students once a week. An amazing lady. Next slide. That's the children that we are feeding now. You can see them more closely now without the presents. Next. And then we drilled a well. We drilled a well because of congregations like you. When we were here last year, you know, we did wells. And we could do, when I was here last, you gave money for wells, and we were able to get things accomplished there. This is a big project. This is about an $11,000 water project. But we were able to do it because of you all, and I thank you all so much, and others as well. Next slide. And then we bought a generator, and you can see that's the well there drilled down, and we've got a submersible pump. We could pump the water up because the chief there has given us 3 acres, and we're going to build a community center. We'll worship there. It'll be where the church is, but we will be doing things every single day. Next slide. And there's the ladies coming to get water. We also got a faucet where they can just come get water as well. Next. Next. And there's our first baptism from that well. So what can I say? Thank you so much. We haven't dug anything yet, so we had to use a blow up. And the preacher was communicated to me, you know, she did, you know, when they first put them down in the water, she had never been, of course, immersed before, so her arm came up. He said, Brother Flynn, I had to keep the arm down the second time. Next slide. So this is where we are. Can you believe it? In 9 years, we haven't completed 10 years yet, but in 9 years we are about to ship 29 containers and our 30th as well. Just so excited about it. And it'll leave May the 6th. We've already got it lined up. Next slide. And this is some of the distribution from the latest container in Zimbabwe. Next slide. And so this is some of the blankets that were given. Winter is coming because the seasons are opposite. Next slide. We want to show some people there is a middle school in Medina, Tennessee, and I'm speaking there in that area, and we just saw this lady. She came right out of the bush with this T-shirt on. I said, Sherry, get next to her. We got to take a picture of this. Next slide. And so here are our wells, 59 wells. Do you know that when I was here last time, we had done 53? And when I walked out of this building, we had done, I think we eventually had money, not when I walked out, but eventually Adam called me, said we had money for 3 wells, as I was asked for 1 well. And oh, by the way, we have drilled a well at our school, but we have to get the tank, just like I showed you, that blue tank. We've got to get a submersible pump. We've got to get a generator because it'll be for the school. So we probably have to buy a second tank. And the total is $6,500. But I walked in and somebody approached me and said, Dorian, are you going to raise money for another well? I said, well, I'm raising money to finish up the water project, $6,500. And that person gave me a check for $5,000. So we just like $1,500. Next slide. And this is our latest well. And we hit water, and of course we don't drill unless it's 90% probability. Next slide. This is a special baptism. Next slide. This is the same guy with Haley. Now, Haley's our point person drilling our wells. We have drilled wells for the last 8 years, okay? And this guy is our point person. He installs all our pumps. And he is, when he started out 8 years ago with Haley, he did such good work. Christopher does wonderful work. And so Haley stuck with him. But Christopher wasn't interested in God. He wasn't interested in religion. He just wanted to get ahead. He had a successful business. And Haley just kept talking to him, just every now and again. Don't have a big debate, but just talks to him about the Lord and about the church and an event that's happening and why don't you come and that sort of thing. We were there 3 weeks ago, and out of the blue, he walks into church and he says, okay, I'm ready to be baptized. Isn't that, I mean, you just think about that. 8 years Haley was working. Haley said, I just couldn't believe it. He just walked in and said, okay, I'm ready. We just don't know where people are. We don't know what good we're doing. Just keep doing good, Next slide. And so this is one of the wells that we did because of you all. Here's the second one. There's the second one. We don't actually see it, but the ladies are walking away from the second one. I'm sorry, we just get pictures given us. I haven't been out there, but look at all the ladies coming from that second well. So thank you all so much, man. On behalf of family and the church as a whole and individuals, we thank you so much. It's so much blessing. Next slide. And there's the second one that we did. Of course, the third one. Next. And so 37 churches planted through our well program. Last year, you know this because I announced it, was 603 immersed into Christ in our program. Next slide. And let me back up one. Let me just back up one. This well you see right here is a well that we drilled probably about seven years ago. You guys had a part in installing the pump at that time when we started. And it's been pumping ever since. It's at a Church of Christ in the city. I took Harold to that well when he was here last, and there's no telling how many people have been immersed into Christ in that trough. Next. And so this year so far, currently 213 have been immersed into Christ in Zimbabwe. So you can see we even way ahead of last year. It's just starting to exponentially just. It's unbelievable. Next slide. This is, and then next slide. This is in Zambia. And currently we've had 87 baptisms in Zambia. So we're going to, if things continue, we're going to, be way more than we were last year. Next slide. And there is a building there in Zambia. Next slide. Okay, so we'll go through these. Go through the next. I think I showed some of these, but there's I wasn't sure, but these are some of the shoes that we have, and if you, that we collected 12,000 pairs. But when you get to just keep going. Next slide. Next slide. Just keep going until you get to a single guy, which is a new picture that I wanted to add to this. But I just wanted you to see something. This young man right here is an AIDS orphan. His parents have passed away. The only shoes that he had was those flip-flops. And we had some shoes left when we were there a few weeks ago. And so we gave it to him, and we were told how proud he was to walk into church with these new shoes, you know. Next. That's a new worship center. It's actually an old Ford dealership that we have made our World Bible School office, and then we worship in the back of it where they used to fix cars. Next. And there is PRISCA at the World Bible School reception desk. Next. There's our Bible distribution. In fact, we try to get as many Bibles out to the graduate students. Next. 60th congregation in 9 years. This is our 60th church. You know, I was telling Benny when I walked in, I said, you know, I can remember when the elders, you know, from here, you know, a little over 9 years ago, where they used Benny's plane and they flew to Marlin, Tennessee, and we said, well, we want to begin something here new, you know. And we had these dreams. To see so much of it come to fruition is amazing. 60 churches, 60. And a lot of it's from our good works, but it's also from the evangelism that comes from that. Next. This young man, please pray for him. He is an amazing young man. He came to me, and his father was a preacher, and he just wrote high school examinations. He wrote O-level, which is equivalent of high school graduation, and straight A's. And then he's just finished his second year in college, and he got straight A's, 4-point. And everybody thought he's going to be a lawyer or a doctor. That's his track. He said, I was so impressed with my father. He said that I want to be in education, Christian education, and I want to preach. And so I think that he might be the next young man that might join our staff at the high school. So we'll help educate him. I've asked some individuals if they would help educate him because he's done so well. And so anyway, but he's just a young, tremendous asset, just 19 years old. Next. And this is a preacher and his wife. This is Daniel and Tendai. And I just got to share this with you. This guy was my mom's World Bible School student about 10 years ago. And he became a Christian. And then he trained, and he's a preacher. And then through his evangelism, he met Tendai. And he told me, he says, I taught her, I baptized her, and I knew when she came up out of the water, she was going to be my wife. And they married. And I said, man, that's awesome. Next, this is another couple, World Bible School students, and now he's preaching, established a church. So that outreach is awesome. Next slide. This is our Zambian Youth Conference. Next slide. Leadership program, I just want you to see we have 300 enrolled. Those are ministers and elders. Next slide. And this is the eldership, just appointed a month ago. This is our 4th eldership in 9 years. Brother Moses, Brother Austin, and Brother Bebe. And that congregation has already planted 15 others. Next slide. And this is our preschool. We have 209 children enrolled. Next slide. This is our Christian high school in the city. Next slide. And this is our team planning. This is we've got a couple that's joined in Kosi and them. They're from McKenzie, Tennessee. They're all Freed Hardman graduates, and they're going to join the next slide. They're going to enjoy Progress and his family, and this is our staff training right now. And by the time the school opens, they'll all at a minimum have their master's degree. Some of them will be working on their doctorate already. So we are excited. Next slide. And then I'm going to close with this, because I want to just drive this home to you. How do you sustain a school, and how do you sustain a clinic in Africa without any U.S. funds once you have infused it and got it up and running? Well, remember when I was here last time? I showed you this picture. Next slide. This was 1,500 tomato plants, and we reaped tomatoes from March until the first week of August. We got so excited about it that we have now planted 45,000 tomato plants. And it's going great guns right now, and hopefully I'll have some pictures more for you later, but it's just going great guns, and so we are so thankful for that. So while we got that track going, and by the way, low-end intake, remember the low end, if it's a bad crop, about 40,000, high end will be 100,000. The clinic is 1,000 a month. The school, we don't know yet, but we are working towards that end. And of course, we'll rotate the crops. We'll go cabbage, and then we'll go corn, as well. And we got plenty land. And then we began our second track with this guy. Next slide. This guy here, man. This is do you know him and his buddies have already given us 140 head in the last few years? We got 140 head. So we work in the cattle, we work in livestock, and we work in agriculture. Because why? Because although we can cover the clinic now, we want to be able to cover the high school when the high school opens. And so we've started with this guy. Next slide. And for you that are planning to come next year, this is where you'll stay. It's a lovely place, and we've just finished a cottage, next slide, which is right behind it. It's a 3-bedroom cottage as well. And so we want to have a great team. We're usually looking at about 12 as a max, but we can put you there comfortably, and we can do a lot together, But thank you so much for the wonderful support you've given us, and God, I pray for Sherry and I pray for the church here and all that you do here, your missions in Baja. I mean, we want this church to continue to thrive everywhere where its presence is felt, and we are so thankful. Would you pray with me, please? Our dear Heavenly Father, we are so thankful for this time together, so thankful for the vision that is here at this church, and just seeing all these young people with lads to leaders, oh God, that is it's just such a wonderful impact that it makes on these young hearts, and I'm thankful that there's a leadership here that promotes that, and thankful, oh God, for all the outreach that the church, the family at OCR does here. Continue to bless them and watch over them. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen.
Dorian knows that because of your nickel dad, cans, corners, that you drop in the little jug out of the foyer this week. I don't write checks. I transfer money. We'll be transferring into your account $300 for your mom.
Oh, wow. Well, let me just say, that's 600 meals. 600 meals.
So thank you. It was wonderful.
Well, y'all continue